Hey everybody, it's Cooper here and welcome to another video. And this might be sort of a quick one, but I got a comment recently on one of my videos kind of asking why I keep track of the prices I've paid for items in my collecting spreadsheet. And they were asking if I do it because I collect as an investment or because I plan to sell everything. And they mentioned that the only time they keep track of what they've paid for something is if they plan on selling it. And I figured, I did respond to their comment and answer their question, but I figured that it was kind of an interesting comment and I wanted to make a video about it, just in case anyone else has any questions about that. So, as most of you guys will probably know, I do have a spreadsheet where I keep track of my collection in great detail. And I have a list of every game, accessory, system, and all that. Everything is separated out on pages by system. And basically, I keep track of the title of the game or the item. I keep track of what I paid for the item. The next column is what the item is worth at the time of putting it into the spreadsheet. I keep track of the location where I got it. So for example, it'll say Goodwill, Craigslist, trade with YouTuber, or something along those lines. Then I keep track of the date that I got it, the complete condition, I guess you can say. It'll either say CIB for complete in box, or it'll say factory sealed, or something along those lines. And then the last one is condition notes, where I actually will write in, just an example for one might say, box has some sun fading and a price tag on the front, manual has one small crease in the front, and cartridge has a name written on the back, something like that. Or most of them are a little more simple. It'll say something like, disc has sticker residue on both sides, or case has sticker residue on both sides, disc is in very good condition. Something along those lines. So not only is it nice to be able to keep track of stuff like this and to go back and say, oh, I paid $10 for this game, 6 months ago. Now the game is going for $35, so I got a good deal. And so that's one of the reasons I do it, is that it's nice to be able to go back and see what you paid for items, but it's also nice to just know what you paid for your entire collection, for example. And because everything is categorized out and everything is in rows and columns and everything is set up so nicely, it just takes one click to see what I paid for my entire Super Nintendo collection, for example. And then a second click will tell me what the entire Super Nintendo collection is worth, because I've entered in the price I paid and the price that it's worth. So when everything's in a big row like that, I click once at the top and it'll give me my total down in the right corner. If you guys are interested in checking out my spreadsheet, there is a link in every video description to my website, which has an embedded version of the Google spreadsheet, which is where I keep track of everything, and it's fully automatically updated. As soon as I update the Google spreadsheet, the website gets updated with the embedded version of that. So if you guys are interested, you can check that out. Link is in the description below. But I wanted to talk about the idea that there's no point in keeping track of what you pay unless you're planning on selling. And that's what I got from their comment, which really threw me off, because I feel like that's a very weird way to think about things. When you have a collection that's fairly large, there's no possible way you're going to remember what you paid for each individual item. So the only way to keep track of that is to write it down. You either have some sort of notebook or journal that you write things down in, or you leave the price tags on everything, or you keep a spreadsheet, which is what I chose to do because it's the easiest, fastest, and the most cleanest and simple way to do it. And so for me, I'm not collecting as an investment. I'm not planning on selling this stuff. And I know that I've sold 2 previous collections, but they were for very good reasons, and one of them was, kind of forced almost. So I'm not planning on selling any of this stuff. Just so you guys know, I'm not collecting as an investment, and keeping track of what I paid for items is nothing more than me wanting to remember. And I think a lot of collectors out there want to do that. They want to know what they paid for an item, and if they do plan on selling it, that's great. They have that information there to know what they paid for it, whether they're going to, be able to sell it for more or less depending on the market and, what's happened with the game. But, it's also just nice to know what you paid for something, and it doesn't have to be anything about selling it or anything like that. It's just nice to know. And when you keep track of everything like that, you can also go back and look, okay, for my entire Nintendo 64 collection, I've paid X amount of dollars, and it's worth this amount. And it's very cool, and if you guys go and check out my spreadsheet, you can look that up too. It's just a matter of highlighting the columns, and it should add it up for you. And for most of my collections, and what I mean by that is like my N64 collection, my Super Nintendo collection, my PS2, etc. In most cases, what I paid for them, the total that I paid for that collection versus the total value of what it's worth, is a lot less. And that's great, because I've been focusing a lot more on getting stuff in person, at thrift stores and garage sales and Craigslist and stuff like that. So on average, I've spent about half of what it's worth for these collections, which is great. Some of them are a little closer. For example, 3DS. A lot of my games have come from GameStop or Target or places like that, and I've been buying them new or pre-ordering them. So I think I just looked at that one the other day. I've spent about $1,300, but it's worth about $1,800. So that's a lot closer. But for example, the very last page in my spreadsheet is a miscellaneous category where I basically keep any sort of promotional items or figures or plushes or toys or anything like that. Anything that's not a game, system, or accessory goes into that category. And I think I've spent like somewhere around $3,000-ish, but it's worth like $7,000 or $8,000 already. And that includes that ex-Nintendo employee collection that I bought recently, and all my figures and plushes and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just a great way to keep track of your stuff. And, not only is it just to go back and see what you paid for something, but because I have a condition notes category where I keep track of the condition of each individual item, when I'm out shopping, if I go to a video game store and I see a game that I know I already have, I don't have to buy it and hope that it's a condition upgrade. I can pull up my spreadsheet on my iPhone, and I can look at the condition, and I can say, okay, the one that I have in my collection at home right now, the top of the case artwork is a little worn white, and maybe there's some Sharpie on the manual, someone wrote their name on it, and the disc is in good condition. And then I can look at the one that I'm holding in my hand and say, okay, there's no damage to the case or manual on this one, and the disc here is in near mint condition. So I can buy that as a condition upgrade if I choose to, and I have all that information on my phone with me 24 hours a day, which is very helpful. And I know I used to keep a website before where I had a list of all my stuff, but it was just a list. I didn't have any sort of condition. I was missing some manuals, which I didn't have on there. I didn't have listed on there either. So now, the spreadsheet that I'm keeping now is much more detailed, and it has all the information that I could possibly need aside from photos. And I'm sure there is a way to add that. It would take a lot of time and effort, and that's really not something I need to do. But the spreadsheet has all the information that I could ever need, and it's very helpful when you're out looking for games, when you're game hunting, or you're at a game store or a thrift store or wherever. It's very helpful to be able to go back to your collection at home and know what you need to know about it in order to buy stuff you're looking at in person. It's very helpful. So, no, I do not collect as an investment. That's not why I'm keeping track of what I paid for items. And if I did decide to sell something, yes, it would be nice to know what I paid for it, but that's not why I'm keeping track of it. I keep track of it because it's nice to know what you paid, and it's fun to go back and look and say, awesome, I got that game for a good price, I've done Craigslist deals where I've gotten pretty rare games for cheap prices. And in 5 years, am I going to remember that? Maybe not. But if I have it in my spreadsheet, there's no way that I'm going to forget. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.